Minister, we're told on the one hand that the revised arrangements outlined in the motion won't be any direct cost to the Exchequer, and then literally in the next sentence of the briefing note we're told they actually will be, which is why we're here discussing them in the first place, because public monies is of course expended on the DAA and Shannon Airport, and if they're expending it on this, then they're obviously not going to be spending it on something else. So they clearly do involve money. Obviously, Dublin Airport aggressively sells itself as a transfer hub, particularly for US flights, and while the airport and the government and most of the opposition seem to believe that this is an unmitigated good thing, I'd like it examined a little bit more. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what I'm saying is we need a serious examination of it before we commit the state's resources to an extension of this agreement. Now, no more than the next person, I'm very happy to go and visit America. I like doing so, and I very much welcome the fact that when I do so, I can use the facilities at Dublin Airport. It is of benefit in that regard. But we do have to have, if you like, some sort of a cost-benefit analysis here in the context of climate change and the emissions in that regard. Also in the context of noise insulation to the surrounding areas and the obligation under the new directive that's going through the House now, the Airport Noise Bill, in ensuring that residents nearby are mitigated against the impact of aircraft noise. And what I wanted to see was some sort of a cost-benefit analysis done here to say, well, fines from climate change, a bigger bill for noise insulation through more flights coming through, is that worth extending the facility here? Because, you know, just unrelenting air travel isn't something that's sustainable in the modern world. But I'd also like the Minister to look at areas like it's not just money. The agreement between Ireland and the United States on pre-clearance requires the Gardaí to provide an appropriate and sufficient law enforcement presence to ensure the security of pre-clearance and the safety of pre-clearance officers, travellers and airport staff. Now, these are Garda resources that are being redirected in this area, which presumably, if they weren't there, they'd be doing something else instead. And we know of shortages in Garda resources in so many other areas. We also have to say there's been many stories, verified ones, of passengers selected for detention and interrogation by US government agents in the pre-clearance area, kept in a detention room, held there to the extent that they missed their flights to the USA. Now, many instances this activity was not legal, because US border guards are not empowered to imprison somebody at Dublin Airport for any length of time. They can only temporarily detain them and then must hand them over to An Garda Síochána. I know of many instances where that did not happen and where passengers were upset and clearly traumatised by what had occurred. Now, there are sanctions laid out in the 2009 Act for US pre-clearance officers who behave badly or cross the line, but I haven't heard of that ever being invoked in relation to cases of arbitrary detention. And I'd like the Minister maybe say, has anybody ever been sanctioned for misbehaviour at Dublin Airport in that regard? And of course, I echo strongly the points made by Deputy Munster, because surrendering some of our airport and our soil to the United States does mean it does come with a risk that was highlighted when Donald Trump tried to implement his Muslim ban on travellers from the 7 Muslim-majority countries entering the United States. And at that time, the government made no move to immediately suspend pre-clearance. No move was made to protect the Irish Gardaí and customs officials involved in pre-clearance and who might have been pushed, therefore, into illegal activity. No instruction telling them to down tools. And I think it's not surprising, obviously. It's part of a broader context of subservience to the United States, saying yes to its illegal war in Iraq, saying yes and facilitating rendition. And in that context, I'd like to very much thank the efforts of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange in highlighting the role of the Irish government in that regard. But the reaction to the Muslim ban was kick it into a review and hope it goes away, which shows a similar lack of backbone. And that puts us at risk through pre-clearance that will be forced again into complicity with it in contravention of international law, of the European Court of Human Rights and all the rest of it. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have it, But what I am saying is we have a role here to evaluate the benefits and the costs to our state. It's not simply a one-way track of, oh, everything is wonderful, aren't we so lucky to get this? And I don't think the costs have been fully taken into account.